All right. Well, so like you, I don't have a podcast, so to speak, either, but this is more of a conversation just to help others who are, they're not really sure. I mean, up until I was 31, I didn't really know what I was going to do. I had this outside vision of one day making it as an actor, but there's no stepping stone as an actor. You kind of just gotta, be right place, right time type deal, which I believed in to a T that I was gonna do based on two things: discipline and work ethic, and just believing. Every day I would go to work. I would stay in on the weekend. Well, I mean, I would work nighttime, nightlife, bartending things and stuff like that to keep me focused. I wouldn't, no partying or anything like that. Out here in Los Angeles, staying disciplined is and temptation is everywhere. But I knew that I wasn't doing that. I was working while others were partying, and I would go home, and just that focus is why I worked, and I had a good solid career. But I'm so fortunate to have something different where I'm helping others. I'm not out poisoning others with booze and stuff. And this is, and I found it. So at 31 years old, well, now I'm 34, but it's been staring me in the face my whole life. And that's, now it's skincare, but it's also health, well-being. It's making others feel good about themselves. And I know you can relate. So I would love to hear your moment. What drew you into being an entrepreneur? What was your moment in your life?
I think that there are many moments, and each one is essentially a progressive realization.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are on your path, and there's many different ways to get to a destination. The river of life can wind in many different ways. But if you are in alignment with what you feel to be your truth, then it doesn't matter. If I know that my truth is to go from New York to Los Angeles, there's many different routes I can take. There's many different ways I can get there. Each one of those will have inherent parts of the journey that are lessons and highs and lows and challenges as part of the experience of the journey of getting there. But that's down to different levels of choice, intuition. So, for me, the progressive realization of being an entrepreneur happened at various different stages. There's certain ones that I can recall. I remember asking my father about one of his friends. I said, "What does he do?" He's always driving nice cars. He's always doing this. And I says, "Oh, he's a businessman." Now, I'd never seen the term businessman on the career options at school.
Yeah.
But it looked like a better deal than some of my dad's other friends who worked for a plumbing firm or what have you. Now, my dad was an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
He ran his own business, but it was a small kind of one-man, two-man deal at a junkyard. And so we all we weren't wealthy and we weren't poor, but my dad worked hard 7 days a week, and I guess vicariously you pick up a lot. And my dad was always doing deals, always negotiating something, always
Mm-hmm.
doing win-win somewhere. And but I remember my mum telling me the story that she came to pick me up from school one day. I was 6 years old, and the headmistress came out and says, "Mrs. Sage, I think your son's going to be a businessman." And Mum was like, "Why?" She says, "Well, in art class today, we made a load of sweets and coloured them in and cut them out, and then your son went round and sold his and took everybody's dinner money." And I can't actually remember that, but it's a story my mum used to tell quite often. And then when I moved into a new home when I was 10 years old, it had a horse chestnut conker tree in the garden. And in England, we play a game at school called Conkers. And I found out that money does grow on trees. So I used to take in bags of conkers and sell them, and I'd always do something. And I remember one time, I think I was 13, and I'd found a stall on the market that sold digital watches for like £1.99. And so I'd buy a load because I thought I'm pretty sure I could sell them at £2.99. So I used to go into school with wrists full of watches.
Nice.
And I'd be selling the watches. And I remember one of the teachers
At $2.99.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
And 50% markup on the deal.
Nice.
And so I remember one of the teachers called me and says, "I was in the staff room and at lunchtime, and it was 1 o'clock, and all of a sudden, everybody's watches chimed the same chime, and we all looked at each other, and everybody says, "Peter Sage."
Nice.
And so, there's certain moments where, I think life is hinting you. And people say, are entrepreneurs born or are they made? And the answer is both. We have a natural predisposition to what our role, path, likes, dislikes are, not from a conformist, programmable part of the brain, which has been influenced by our upbringing, our peers, our environment, and our conditioning, but by who we are underneath all that.
Right.
You ask any parent that's got twins, and same environment, same exposure, same everything, two massively different tendencies, preferences, personalities.
Right.
So we have an inherent nature, which is essentially led by the heart. Our mind is then programmed over the top of that. So that's where most people have this conflict. So are entrepreneurs born or made? They're both. Just because there's something called a guitar doesn't stop anybody from learning how to play it. Not everybody's going to be Eric Clapton.
Right.
There's a different thing. So you will shine if you are aligned with what your heart is singing. Right. And most people allow their mind to have to figure out the how before they follow their heart, which is never a great strategy, because the mind will usually figure out how to do something else easier, and try to take the path of least resistance based upon a conditioning through traditional education of linear thinking. In other words, we say, what's the fastest way from A to B? Everyone will say, oh, it's a straight line. That's bullshit. Straight lines don't exist in nature. The fundamental pattern of nature is the wave. Right. It's what makes everything in the physical world physical. And everything is subject to that. Everything oscillates at a frequency, which is measured by a wave. Right. So, I don't care if it's a light wave, a microwave, an X-ray, radio wave, doesn't matter. It follows ups and downs. The fastest way from your home right now to the gym is not a straight line. If you tried to do that, you'd probably, upset your neighbor.
Yeah, very true. Exactly.
It takes a tremendous amount of energy wasted under the guise of it's the fastest route. Because the left brain is taught the shortest route is the fastest route, and it isn't. There are no straight lines in nature. You see a straight line is man-made. So when people follow their passion, a lot of the times they're talked out of it by the brain that can't see the fastest way to get there. They don't trust the heart and how the river winds. They want to build a canal,
right?
Which there's no life in, and it takes a tremendous amount of energy. So a lot of people there, if you want to be an entrepreneur, it's usually the left brain that's stopping you, when the heart you already knew.
Yeah.
Okay, 31 years old. I'm meant for more than going working in a bar.
Yes. Absolutely. So
and your passion, you're a great example of that, my friend.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm still new to this. I was I don't know if you know the story behind how I created Alitura, which is my skincare line, but I was hit and run over by 2 cars on Melrose, and I woke up in the ICU with 7 broken ribs, a shattered jaw from the middle of my chin to just beneath my left ear. And I was told so many different things about how to repair my abrasions, modeling and acting. That was never going to happen again. So that's what people told me, and I was just grateful to be alive. But I didn't. It kind of just stuck in there that I wanted to maybe prove that I could get back into the industry down the road. But it was a long road to recovery, and I created a clay-based facial treatment mask, and I added different superfood extracts, American ginseng, vitamin C, freshwater pearl powder, colostrum. Based on my research, there's a lot of information out there, and it's on us I use myself as my biggest science experiment, and I just had nothing but time. My jaw was wired shut, and I didn't want to use these chemically laced products that my surgeons are recommending that I use for healing my scars and just getting back to hopefully where I was before. But it was just, I was told immediately that I was 2 years out from, feeling again. There was so much scar tissue built up right here. I had 2 titanium plates inserted. It was bad, but the whole time I was just focusing on how to beat it. I was, I think that moment, there was a day or two where it was really dark. And it was just very disappointing, but I had a, lovely family and very good friends that were supportive and just instilled the fact that I'm very lucky to be alive. So I went with that and moved everything out of my back room here, and had a nice view of the mountains and just meditated, focused on, what I had some time, I wasn't working, and just slowly started putting things together of a product that I was using, or I created just based on 4 clays, but I added the colostrum, the pearl powder, the ginseng, the kelp powder, and the vitamin C to really turn that mask up to help remove those heavy metals and recondition the skin. And here we are. I did a podcast with Dave Asprey from Bulletproof on how I used his products to help. My jaw was wired shut, so I couldn't use any food or anything like that to help. I was making smoothies and using a lot of his collagen powder, a lot of different protein sources and stuff like that to help build my system up internally and get proper nutrients in. But towards the end, he asked me about what I was doing for my scarring, because by that time it was 2 or 3 years after the recovery, and I was good. And I just told him what I did with my skincare line, but there was no name, no website, or anything like that. And he had so many downloads for his podcast. I just gave out my email address and said, yeah, if anybody out there wants to try it, I gave my personal email address, andynilo42@yahoo.com. And I mean, every time I refresh my Yahoo browser, I got a whole new set of emails with a lot of love, and also people wanting to purchase a product. So I just came up with a number. Free shipping sounded great. And I didn't even calculate cost. I had no idea of that. I just was living off the adrenaline of that somebody wanted to try something that I created. I didn't have a name, Peter. So immediately I came up with a website, or a name, a website, started packaging, ran to Whole Foods and got those little bulk containers that were used for honey and olive oil, taped them shut, went to FedEx, did a Times New Roman label of Alitura by Andy Hnilo with my little website, and just send it off, to Sweden, to Germany. I mean, you know how expensive it is to send to, it was about 10 to 14 ounces after packaging, and that's expensive, and I was charging $35. I was making nothing off, but I was living off that adrenaline of, man, I have something. And here we are 18, 20 months later after the official launch on the Bulletproof side. Dave, we really tightened up the packaging and got it done nicely to represent the product. But we're in 40 countries now, and it's really taken off. I'm doing this operation all out of my apartment. I moved my brother down here. He's living with me, just helping me do daily operations. And it's exhilarating. Like you said, I got out of the bar business, and I'm extremely grateful not only to be here, to be able to smile again without my teeth clanking into each other. And I still don't have full feeling right here. I cut myself shaving and I don't even feel it, or I see it when the blood's running down, but I don't feel it. But I just have man, it's extremely, it's great to be able to have different conversations with my mom and dad now. It's a completely different, it's something that I can control. Whereas the acting and the uncertainty, now I know you're big on certain, and I want to be clear that just the pathway, it never deterred me of pursuing acting. The certainty, I didn't need that because I had it up here. I think that I had it. I believed, and that's huge. And I may get back into that industry because it is exciting. I know you're big on excitement. That's excitement and passion. They're right next to each other, and it's just they're very similar. One usually leads to the other, and I was drawn to acting. But this is something that's been staring me in the face my whole life. It's skincare. I used to have bad skin. I counteracted it with my first clay mask, and then I got into the accident, and I feel like I counteracted and accelerated the healing of my injuries through the product that I created. And it's just the purity of ingredient rosters. That's where I believe my product stands out, and the true story behind my intentions of why I'm doing this and helping others. That's my why. So that actually leads me to my next question is, I wanted, like, what was your moment where your why? Have you been asked that, why you do what you do? I mean, you're helping so many others. I've looked at your awesome conferences where you have hundreds of people, thousands of followers, and I just want to know what is your why? What led to that?
We all evolve, and the biggest transition that I think most people go through in their life is not a personal transition of circumstances. It's a evolution in consciousness. Everything that we do is a projection of the level of consciousness we're at. That's that's it. It's the first thing I look at when I'm with people or working with people is where are they broadcasting from? What is their inherent base frequency of of life? Mm-hmm. Are you broadcasting at a level of anger or disappointment or uncertainty or desire where you're perpetually chasing something, or are you in more of a level where you're being courageous with life, want to embrace life, you're accepting circumstances that you can't change, so that you can then respond appropriately rather than bitch about them? Are you coming from a place of appreciation rather than judgment? Or empathy rather than condemnation? There's so many different frequencies that people will settle into, and as soon as you're there, just like a radio station, whatever you're broadcasting at, they're the only songs you can play. If you're at a jazz station, you're playing jazz, not rock. Mm-hmm. And so for me, the biggest transition for me was transitioning from an egocentric level of mindset, which was dominated my 20s, certainly into my sort of late 20s, early 30s, into more of a ethnocentric mindset, which is, how do I go from what I can get to how do I appreciate what I can give, and as a result, I get taken care of. Yeah. And so in my 30s, that was a big shift. Late 20s, I moved from being driven by significance and the need for approval to understanding that life is about growth and contribution. And that's the law, and you can't short circuit that. And if you try, you will struggle, and if you flow with it, things work. Yeah. And the oak tree doesn't struggle to grow. Right? It unfolds at a certain pace on a certain natural level of order. It would only struggle if it wanted to be an apple tree.
Yeah.
That's and it can try all it wants. That's always going to be a losing battle.
Right.
So for me, that was a big transition point. But there was another transition point recently, and that's where I was going far more from an ethnocentric perspective into far more of a world-centric perspective. I recognized that my message does have a way of being able to reach people and explain things in some ways that I'm grateful that people can understand. There's a slightly different. Everyone sings their own song, and I found very blessed that people like tapping their feet to the tune that I sing.
Yeah.
And I have a responsibility with that. And the responsibility is that when people see some of the work that I do, it can help remove some of the blocks to their own greatness by shifting the pain of mismanaged thinking. And that's essentially what it is.
That's exactly what it is. I completely agree with that. I mean, there's so many, as we were talking about earlier, the podcast that you did with Dave most recently, and I'm paraphrasing, others are going to tell you what you should and shouldn't do. I had friends tell me, with all due respect, what do you know about skincare? I didn't have a degree in chemistry. I just had an attention to detail in seeking the best. I sought out spa treatments, but I also took some gambles on things that I've never seen used topically, things like colostrum, pearl powder, American ginseng. But I felt that if it was so good internally, believe me, I tried a lot of things that didn't work. But I had a very good, I knew when I felt and saw activity, and I saw acceleration of my injuries. And I just didn't really need the good, like you said, I didn't really need the good opinion of others. It never deterred me. Nothing did. It's so important that I talk to people to just follow what you're drawn to, follow what excites you, and that's all that matters. And when you're drawn to something, and my brother loves Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu right now. Who knows? Down the road, he could be an instructor. He could have his own. There's just no limits. I've seen time and time again people that have athletes that have been told no. I've seen guys get cut twice from a mediocre Division I college baseball team and turn out to be in the top 5, top 10 in the major leagues in batting average. I mean, there's just no. The only thing that matters is upstairs and stay away from.
Follows the mind.
Absolutely.
I have a similar story in terms of a skiing accident that I did, and I'll send you the account on it. In fact, I think it might even be on my website right now on the blog. But it was when I crushed my side of my face on a skiing accident, multiple fractures, jaw, eye socket, cheek, and titanium plate, 5 screws. And,
left side, right side?
Right side. Yeah.
Are they still in there?
Titanium plates here.
Oh, man.
Yeah. That's bionic upgrade. I'm happy with that.
What's that?
Bionic upgrade.
Yeah, there you go.
Why wouldn't you want it? And the other thing was that I lost complete feeling, obviously, because the nerve was crushed in the side of my face.
Mine too.
And I remember walking in, and the doctor turned around and says, "Listen, 80% of people recover over time, 20% don't." I'm like, "Well, I'm in the 80%." And he says, "You don't get to choose." I'm like, "Well, too late. I've already chosen." Right? And he looked at me crazy. Now, the other thing was, I was scheduled immediately the next day, so I didn't realize I'd broken anything. I had a belief at the time that I don't break. I'd never broke a bone in my body, never would. That was my belief. I've shifted that since. And I got up. I'd hit the floor, bang, and I felt like someone had punched me. And a yard sale on the mountain. And a friend came up and says, "You okay?" And I think first words out of my mouth was, "I think I might have broke my jaw." But I'm like, it can't happen because I don't break. So anyway, I got up, carried on skiing. And I remember got to the ski lift, and the woman there said, "You okay?" Because my eye was closing up, and I'm like, I've had a bit of a wipeout. I'm probably going to call it a day. One more run, And I get to the top of the ski lift, and there was a medic there waiting for me. And she'd actually radioed through, and he took one look at me and says, "Dude, you've got to go to hospital. You've done a bit more damage than you think."
Ooh.
And his certainty put me into shock at that point. I'm like, "Whoa, okay, well, if that's the case, time to, maybe not one more run." And they stretched me off the mountain. I remember getting in the ambulance, and the girl turned around and says, "Are you allergic to anything?" And I looked her right in the eye, serious face, and I said, "Gravity." And we all started laughing. And my jaw's hurting, right? I'm trying to laugh here. They go to get my ID, and I start screaming thief in the dentist. "Have you got any ID on you?" And I'm sponging to the stretcher, and I'm shouting to the driver. I'm like, "Thief, you put me with 2 thieves. They're trying to take my wallet." And the whole trip to the hospital was just a riot. It was brilliant. And we were negotiating because they wanted to cut off my jacket to get a blood cuff on. I'm like, "It's $1,000 jacket. It ain't happening."
Oh, no way.
Like, dude, I said, "I'll make you a deal. You get it off my shoulder, and you can cut my top underneath." It was $10 from Walmart, right? You can have that, but leave the freaking jacket. Anyway, we go in, they do the MRI, they do the X-ray, and the guy comes out and says, "Listen, you've got to go for plastic surgery to rebuild your face. You've done some more damage." I'm like, "Oh." And I remember at that point, because I still thought I just bruised, I remember at that point, and they shifted me up in bed, and I got my girlfriend at the time came in, Tammy, and she looked, and I never forget the look on her face, because as I came up, the whole side of my face flopped down. And she was like, "Yeah, like that." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, fair enough." Now, at that point, I immediately understood 2 things. One, I'm in charge of my healing, nobody else. Case closed. Second thing is, the most conducive state for healing, well, the most conducive is unconditional love, but most people don't have a reference for unconditional love because they've never had it. So trying to get into that is a mind game for most people. Whereas gratitude has a very similar frequency. And so immediately go into a gratitude frame. Very easy to set up, just like you did after your accident. You're grateful to be alive. And that what I had, as I went straight in that lying in a hospital bed, I immediately put myself in a position whereby I went and thought, okay, it takes a lot of force to smash an eye socket. A lot more force than is required to snap a neck. If 2 degrees different landing, bang, that's wheelchair for the rest of your life. Imagine if that would have happened, because that could have been so easy. And I'm in hospital now without feeling my arms and legs, and the doctor comes in and says, "I'm sorry, you've got a whole different game." Imagine at that point that my fairy godmother, guardian angel, comes up and says, "Yo, dude," because that's probably what they'd say, "You're a pretty cool guy. We're going to cut your brain. Why don't we, one-time deal, rewind. I'm going to shift your head a couple of degrees and just smash up your face, which will heal. Are you up for it? Would you take the deal?" Like, in a heartbeat. And imagine that had happened, and I was now lying in and the guy's just come in and says, "Look, you've got to go for plastic surgery." I mean, you'd be crying with tears of gratitude.
Absolutely.
Straight in there at that level. Contrast frame.
What's that?
A contrast frame.
Yeah.
And so, just like you did with Grateful to Be Alive, I mean, just phenomenal. At which point, I was scheduled 2 days later to fly to the Bahamas on a very expensive seminar that I paid $100,000 for, to spend 2 weeks working with one of the top energy guys. And I'm going, right? I'm no, you've got to go to surgery tomorrow, and then you've got a week's recovery
Oh,
before
yeah.
you have this, and then you're not allowed to fly, and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, dude, I'm going. They called me an idiot. I had to sign release forms and all the rest of it. I went in for the surgery. Next day, I flew to the Bahamas.
No.
Every single day, but I'm working on healing. I understand that accelerated healing, and I teach how to mend bones on X-ray in 14 days, and I've done it twice now. It's my new belief. I only break twice.
That is nuts, man.
But it's 70% metaphysical, 30% physical, which kind of makes sense when you look at the ratios of what physical is. When you look at them, we're talking science now. So if you go from understanding what a particle is at the atomic level, the subatomic level, an atom is created, a particle is created from a state of previously being a wave. Everything exists as a wave, a state of possibility, and is collapsed into what we then call it a lower frequency, a particle. Mm-hmm. Now, if you look at a particle under the microscope, if you take the P as the nucleus and you put that in the center of a baseball field, the electron has a field of possibility to appear up to the outer edge of that stadium. Everything else is nothing. It's energy. It's non-matter, which means an atom at its core is 99.9 to the power of 6% nothing. Wow. You are 0.00001% actual matter.
Wow.
So, where everybody focuses on the 0.1 to the power of 6.
Yeah.
Nobody's focusing on the 99.9, which is where it comes from. So, where do blood cells come from? Where you go into it and you look further and you look further and you look further, there's nothing there. You're a bunch of nothing in terms of at a physical level. Mm-hmm. Everything is created from the metaphysical. Everything physical comes from metaphysical. It gives birth to the physical. How do we know that? Well, guess what? Everything in the physical universe is subject to the law of impermanence. So where do we come from and where are we going? Big questions. I don't sign up for the class. Your left brain will get confused. However, I know that nothing that exists in the physical world can last forever. Mm-hmm. So therefore, the essence of what makes us us has to be non-physical. Now, how much non-physical can you fit on the head of a pin? All of it.
Yeah.
It's a different conceptual understanding that most people don't get plugged into because they're too confused and never had this level of conditioning or insight. So if you look at just focusing 30% healing on the physical, right, rather than what most people do, which is 100%, and 70% metaphysical. So in the Bahamas, very simple. Physically, you've got to take care of. You've got to have levels of rest. You've got to support your body in an alkaline and healing state. You've not got to put any more stress or trauma or toxins into the body. The body's got to be given the physical basis in order to regenerate, rejuvenate at a physical level. Mm. But the body follows the mind. You can give somebody healing stuff and they've got lousy thoughts, there's no result. You give somebody placebo with amazing story behind it and they will respond. That's what it is. So the mind is the generator of what the body will then follow. So for me, the metaphysical is far more important. Visualizing every single day that my bones were fusing like magnets, increasing my white blood cell count, seeing them gobble up stuff like a shark in the arteries. Any bacteria that would have the audacity to have a pop at my immune system would get slain by a white blood cell carrying a lightsaber. I mean, it's just, don't even try. I mean, I was in tune. Total rest, relaxation, visualization, meditation, right? Done. My body has already been told how to heal. It knows that. Yeah. It's smarter than me. I can't stop my body healing if I cut myself. Sorry. Yeah, it's pre-programmed. Yeah. Get yourself out of the way. The car knows how to drive itself. It's been built for that. But if you're taking the wheel and turning left, it doesn't mind what happens. Mm-hmm. It can take you down a road to your goal or off a cliff. Right? Its job is to follow commands. Mm-hmm. Your body will follow commands.
Those commands are upstairs.
Every time. Yeah. But linking the heart and the mind together. When you were an actor, you knew. You didn't hope. You didn't wish. You didn't pray. You didn't cross your fingers. You freaking knew.
Yeah.
Done. The heart and mind is aligned. Boom. That sends a signal of congruency out of the world saying, this is what I'm about. and your path will find you in a non-linear fashion, because the essence of life is non-linear. Other people call that circumstances or synchronicity or luck, but it is the scientific level of manifestation from a congruent level of how you interact with the world. So if you have a situation whereby, and in the Bahamas I was focused, I tracked, and I've got the photographs. Yeah.
You did what? You tracked
I've got the photographs tracking each day what the healing was.
Wow.
After 2 weeks, I went back. I was already 1 week late for my follow-up appointment. I walked in, the surgeon didn't know who I was. Face was healed, bones fused, everything done.
A week out. Wow.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Okay.
Yeah. So 2 weeks done. Now, not only that, but within 3 days of arriving in the Bahamas, I'm hitting the gym. Now, the entire body is responding. So I came back from the Bahamas in the absolute best shape of my life.
No way. That's crazy. I didn't even go for walks until 10 days. I mean, I was, head to toe.
And you've been programmed consistently from a radio station that was broadcasting why you can't, not how you can.
So you're right.
The fact that you did what you did anyway is just credit to your inner strength and understanding and ability to take control. But I just had a text message this morning from a friend of mine that's been diagnosed with terminal cancer. And my response was, they don't have the right to tell, they're not qualified to tell you that. She texts back, says, oh no, they're certified oncologists. I'm like, nobody in a white coat has the right to tell you or the authority to tell you and your body how to heal. Now I get it. I just sent her a link to watch several health documentaries to start tuning her into a different radio frequency. One of my favorites is Forks Over Knives.
I hear it's awesome. I haven't seen it yet. I have to see that. Watching it now, for sure.
And you don't get the choice, unfortunately, and as to whether you get programmed or not, because we are 24/7 adaptation machines, mind and body. In other words, your body is designed to adapt to its environment. Now, it doesn't care if it's the gym or McDonald's. Right? It will adapt. You put it 6 months in McDonald's, it'll adapt. You put it 6 months in the gym, it'll adapt. Right? It doesn't care. Its job is not to question. Its job is to adapt. Your mind is the same.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get to choose whether or not you get programmed. The only choice you have, like gym or McDonald's, is which environment do you want to put your mind in to be programmed by. Right. And unfortunately, the two most powerful programmers out there are the media and your peer group.
Right.
And unless you consciously take charge of eliminating the media or filtering it to a point where you're happy to look at, thankfully now, like new media, like podcasts, etc., people that inspire you, come from how we can, not why we can't, and you consciously choose the people you surround yourself with, then you will adapt to that. That's just like going to the gym.
Absolutely.
And so that is the fundamental upgrade that most people can do with their lives, is check what environment that you're in consciously and physically. Mm-hmm. And at that point, you have a choice. No one has the right to tell you you can't do it. Nobody has the right to pre-program you to heal faster or slower or tell you that this is the way it should be done. Your body's far smarter than that.
And that translates to everything. Whether it's career choice, every single thing that we do. I remember when I was 14 years old, a high school baseball coach who played in the major leagues came up to me and said, you have a chance, you have potential, but you know what that means?